Wrestling Fan at Wrestling Show. I'm the big beefy boy, Shaz Beef. Today I'm joined by the anarchists. My fellow Olbach in Morro. It's been an eventful week, Morro.
Caused a stir.
Caused a bit of a stir.
Caused a stir on the TikTok and YouTube.
We were quite tired after WrestleMania.
Yeah.
It was early when we were... You're buzzing with this, aren't you? I'm not. I feel dirty. I feel bad.
I think John and Kieran feel dirty as well, by association.
It's the Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show, and we are at heart wrestling fans. However, due to us not particularly enjoying WrestleMania...
Let's go back a little bit there.
Okay.
Due to Triple H putting on a shit WrestleMania, and us saying that...
Yeah, we were very animated, though. I was looking at other reactions, like Ariel Helwani. I was looking at his reaction. I was like, that was very composed.
Yeah, but he's a journalist.
Yeah, I know.
And he's friends with Nick Khan.
But we didn't say it in, like, I think in a friend way. I think we said it, whatever we said, in a, like, fuck you way.
That's how I felt after watching 8 hours of the show.
Yeah. I suppose at the time I was very tired and cranky.
Yeah, I was real cranky. I stayed up till 4 a.m. 2 mornings in a row and got presented with drivel.
Yeah, but you're a grown-ass man, you loser.
I like wrestling.
Oh, they're so... I do laugh at all the comments, though.
Oh,
it got like, wait, so if you just watch on YouTube and you'd look down at our last YouTube number, there's only like 450 views on it as of time of speaking, but fucking the dumpster fire that is TikTok and YouTube. Like, I knew what I was doing when I was cutting up the clips.
You clickbaited me.
Yeah.
You used my anger against Triple H.
And my anger.
Yeah, that's true. You had your John Cena one.
Yeah.
And I had my Triple H one. And they both did.
You outdrew me.
I outdrew you, yeah. But I think I was also more...
You stared directly into the camera and called them out.
I went full clickbait on it.
But you weren't intentionally going clickbait.
No, I was expressing...
That was your feelings.
Yeah, I was expressing my feelings as to...
Do you think of the way we express it by coming down to being basement dwellers?
We are literal basement dwellers.
We're in a dungeon. Do you think, this is the right way to express our feelings on it?
Well, I could just go on Twitter and shout into the abyss.
Or you could just not express it. Be a fan, don't be a critic, bro.
Fuck you, Triple H.
There are some funny stuff on that, though.
Like, I literally,
just before we came in, I got an Instagram message going, your show fucking sucks.
Quit bitching.
This show fucking sucks. Quit your bitching, you pussies. So I love hearted the message.
Yeah, if you don't like our show, you don't have to watch our show.
Oh, but definitely messages and call us pussies.
How about just be a fan, don't be a critic.
That's what I was catching a lot of people that way. People were saying, oh, why'd you have to give your opinion on it? I'm like, well, why are you giving me your opinion right now?
My opinion.
Yeah. It's Catch-22. Or other people like, you just have a John Cena agenda. And I'd be like, well, you have an agenda of promoting John Cena. Well, I was like, that they're lame arguments. Come at me with facts.
My criticism of the booking got several comments of like, oh yeah, like, why don't you just book a wrestling company? I'm like, I would. If
I do in TEW.
I do. Actually,
we have none of these issues.
none of these issues. My main events always go down like a house on fire in a good way. I would if I could marry the daughter of the most powerful wrestling promoter in the world and get my way into booking, just like Triple H.
I think he served his time. Like we did bring up Next. A lot of people are saying, well, what about Next? Because you called him a horrible booker, and we did bring that up in the full podcast. And I guess that's what happens when you just clip everything up, isn't it? It's you're only getting this minute. You're not that audience definitely isn't translating over into the full.
That's not translating into watching.
And I'm kind of happy they didn't, because I look back on that podcast and I was like, I didn't like the shell of myself that I was.
I didn't. I came out of that like that was the least amount I had enjoyed a podcast that we'd done together.
Recorded, yeah. Did you listen back to it?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing back. I did.
Rough,
yeah.
Like.
Yeah, it's just two of us just having a terrible time.
Two having
a terrible time.
50-year-old men crying about wrestling.
Yeah, that's what one lad commented.
I said 60. He's 60.
My response was, I am 60 now because Travis Scott's entrance took 24 years.
Yeah, and a lot of people actually getting in touch as well about that entrance and not being particularly pleased with it.
Look, there was a lot of comments as well in agreement.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. I love them all, because I did at the end of the podcast, which nobody would have seen, saying, if you have something to say, say it.
Say it, yeah, say it.
Just say it. But I don't know. I don't like putting that type of negative energy out in the world. And I also understand how hypocritical that could sound because I do the same with AEW.
Yeah.
But at least with AEW, there's generally a counterbalance.
There wasn't much of a counterbalance.
This was almost like, stop, he's already dead.
Yeah,
and
possibly.
And there was no one to be like, hold on now.
Well, we did.
All you're doing is talking about how crap everything is. That triple threat was pretty awesome.
We did say that though.
Yeah, but we breezed over all the good stuff.
True. Also, I would also like to add though, right, that generally when in the past we've reviewed loads of WWE shows at this stage.
Yeah.
We've only had 2 negative reviews. Netflix debut.
Yeah.
Which I had a bit of counterbalance because you liked the Punk set match. I thought was okay.
Yeah.
But in general, the Netflix debut, we were quite subdued, critical.
And it was the same issues, I think, that translated over to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
the whole celebrity stuff, the whole...
We did King and Queen of the Ring last year. We gave that very positive reviews. We gave SummerSlam reasonably positive reviews. Like, we did basically every pay-per-view last year.
And like, someone said, anytime I click on this page or anytime something of ye comes up, it's negative. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like also the algorithm feeding negative stuff. Like, we've put up a lot of positive stuff
like
that gets no traction. And sometimes it's generally just to get a debate, but I also can feel myself sometimes, especially with that one, but there wasn't much else.
There was very little clippable. It was just me and you almost
having a terrible time. But I don't like feeding into that either. Like, I did it before when I if people don't know, I had a comedy page on Facebook called Simple Crack. And that basically started off like kind of taking the piss out of things. And the hate I used to get on it, and I used to revel in it. I loved it. I used to make videos then about all the hate messages I received.
Loved it.
I loved it, like.
Yeah.
But then I was like, why am I bringing this into my life?
I had a great time the last few days.
I know, yeah.
Responding to all the comments.
Yeah, they're fun. Like, some of them are fun.
Cool.
Like, one guy goes, you can smell you can smell the video from here. Look, you can smell them from here. And I was like,
look, I wrote
a comment, but like TikTok took it down, and it was a very clever one. But I looked at his page. Yeah,
I screenshotted his face. I was going to show it on camera and say, this guy, you're worried about the smell of us.
Yeah, the guy lip syncs to D&D, which I think is cool.
Hey, look, have fun,
but just don't be calling us smelly. You're literally a dungeon guy.
You're
a dungeon master.
You're also a dungeon dweller, like ourselves.
Yeah.
I screenshot this picture.
Big up what you do, though. I think it's fun.
Hey, look,
I'd love to start playing Dungeons and Dragons.
But there's one thing I'd like to address more than anything. There was a slew of comments.
A slew?
Yeah.
Not even a trickle, a slew.
No, it was a slew.
A slew?
It was slew.
Slew of comments.
A slew of comments echoing the same sentiment.
I was mainly disagreeing.
No, but there was one. People disagreed for a variety of reasons.
Some comments that were coming up, like the people disagreeing with the people that were agreeing. So people were having like fights.
They were having fights within the comments.
Yeah, but like then some TikTok would be like, do you approve or do you want to delete this comment? And I'm like, why am I the master of this? I'm not fucking moderating. But then again, I was like, I probably should be moderating this stuff.
It's on our page. You're the referee.
I had to delete some stuff.
Yeah. You deleted some of my comments last week. I asked you specifically this time.
I didn't.
When I called your man brain dead last week.
I'm saying that. Yeah, but it's unbecoming of us to be doing that. I think it
was under my own personal name.
Yeah, but it's representing the brand of the wrestling fan wrestling show.
Look, if someone's brand dead, but it behooves us to tell
one guy
him.
was calling some guy a virgin. It was actually a Dungeon and Dragon guy. He was calling this guy a virgin, and I'm like, dude, seriously, seriously, have you ever even kissed a girl? That sounds like that's what he wrote.
Yeah.
Have you ever even kissed a girl?
I don't know how it got to that. There was another guy who said about me, and look,
I deleted some stuff about you.
Was it the chromosomes one?
No, that was funny.
He spelled chromosomes wrong firstly, so I told him to get.
And then he clicked into his page and it's him dressed as Bane with a Danhausen suit. yeah. Why are we? That's what I'm saying. It's addictive. I don't like it.
And then, but his second comment was like, "This guy needs to like stop sitting on butt plugs." I was like, "Dude, like,
you sit on butt plugs?"
No, I don't sit in butt plugs.
Are you sitting on one now?
Oh, I can. Do you want to look? I was like, why are both your comments of that nature?
Yeah, but like some people just want to some people just want to get stuff out. Some people I've replied to people and then go, you know what? Actually, after I typed it out, I was like, I don't want to send this.
Butt plug dude, when I went on his page, I regretted responding at all.
Yeah. Like, and I don't understand why I'm going on people's pages. I didn't do it well a lot, but I did it well enough to be like...
those two. Dungeons and Dragons guy and butt plug guy.
But I'm also have to understand that I'm putting stuff out there that is going to garner a reaction, whether negative or positive. So you have to accept the consequences. And the consequences are people can be critics.
Fine.
That's okay.
Yeah. No, there was some people there was some comments there. I had a very productive conversation with a guy. He said, just going to forget about NXT. I explained my thoughts on that and he liked it. Fine. Then here's my favourite one. 1.1 billion people watched Mania. 1.1 billion. Triple H must be pawning off his titles to pay the bills. I was like, 1.1 billion.
Did 1.1 billion people watch WrestleMania?
No.
I had to be close.
There is only 300 million people with Netflix.
Yeah, Peacock. Can you get it on Peacock? Can you get it on the cock?
Yeah, you can get it on Peacock this year.
Pay-per-view numbers.
Yeah.
Is that still a thing?
It
terrestrial television?
It's not on terrestrial television. And then Peacock has, what's Peacock have? 65 million, 70 million? So it's only available to a maximum of 450 million. Then we had, here's a podcast I'm never going to listen to. Fine.
I was like, I wouldn't listen to us either.
I would.
Not the last one. I apologize to people who've been like, I'm sorry that was overtly
shout
negative.
out to Ed Lees referring to Triple H as Triple Himmler.
You found that funny. I
didn't find that funny. I was going to leave that there. Then, yeah. So here's my big thing, right? There was a slew of comments.
Yeah.
That blamed The Rock.
Yeah. He came out and did an interview with Pat McAfee's or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Big shout out to Decadance 32 as well. He's over in Amsterdam. He's a DJ. One of the lads, glad to find an Irish podcast about wrestling. Yup out of it.
Good man.
I said, thank you, man. We're usually not this angry. He said, it's all good. Got to share the podcast around. Appreciate that. Appreciate you.
Shout out.
Anyway, The Rock isn't responsible.
Rootless Talk as well. Shout out to him. He reposted a lot of our stuff because he agreed with it.
Thank you.
Okay. So, a lot of people were blaming The Rock for this.
Dave LaGreca.
But the finish of the main event.
Yeah.
And for ruining Triple H's booking.
Poor Triple H.
Okay. Now, do I think that Rock is fucking with Triple H and there is an internal feud?
This is your power struggle idea.
This is my power struggle. I've referenced this here for months. And none of you really, not that you disagreed with me, you just didn't give me airtime on it. You kind of shot me down. I'm going to take off my glasses for this. So, we're going to go back to December.
She's getting serious. Like when Kurt Angle takes down his straps.
Yeah.
When Johnny Morris take off the glasses.
When I take off the sunglasses.
He's about to lock in something.
December. Dave Meltzer reports that The Rock won't be doing Mania.
Right.
Okay.
Daddy Melts. That's what you call him.
Yeah. Now, in fairness to Meltzer's reporting on this, he's actually been quite spot on. He's actually been 100% spot on. Even some of his online biggest critics have had to eat some pie on it. But Meltzer reports December, The Rock is not doing Mania this year. Won't be there in any capacity.
Okay.
January 6th, The Rock shows up in the Netflix debut, nukes all his storylines.
Yeah.
That suggests he ain't around for Mania. Nukes all his storylines. Following night, he goes on NXT. Really weird shit.
That was I didn't like any of that stuff.
Yeah. We both hate that stuff.
We both mentioned it.
That suggests that The Rock knew in January he's not doing Mania. Because why nuke all your storylines? Okay. Pre-Elimination Chamber. This is what The Rock has said. Sometime before Elimination Chamber, Ari Emanuel calls on The Rock to help as the Elimination Chamber is not gaining sufficient traction. The Rock suggests turning Cody heel. Cody declines. Day of the show, Cena accepts instead. Okay?
Day of the show?
Apparently it was the day of the show when Cena accepted the heel turn. Initially...
That's pretty fly-by-numbers booking.
Pretty fly-by-numbers. But The Rock only got called in by Ari Emanuel...
Who said... but a few weeks beforehand. This is the
a couple of weeks. But The Rock...
Which is
initially, on the initial run sheet for Elimination Chamber, The Rock Cody segment was supposed to go on second, not after the main event.
Okay.
It was moved to after the main event, the day of the show, when...
Was Cena still meant to win the elimination?
Cena was still meant to win. It was going to be a face versus face match with a potential heel turn for Cena in the main event of Mania.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
Would have been cool. Okay, but Cena accepts on the day of the show, we'll do the turn tonight. That segment gets moved to the end of the show. Yeah. The Cena heel turn gets put in. Okay? Universally acclaimed heel turn at the time.
Amazing. Loved it.
Great angle. We both came on here and said this was a great angle. Okay?
Loved it. Loved it.
Cena wins, sides with The Rock, attacks Cody. The Rock then stated in his interview that post-elimination chamber, The Rock called both Cena and Cody, told him the final boss's work is done. Then there's no mention of The Rock on programming or build to WrestleMania as such in the meantime.
Not even by Cody.
Not even by Cody. We thought it was weird.
Yeah.
And then we get wet fart main event.
Okay.
Finish. Okay? So, people are blaming The Rock.
Yeah.
The Rock was never supposed to be there. The Rock's only involvement in this was the soul. Okay?
What? Are you not attributing any of the blame to The Rock?
No. Let me get the full picture here. I'm just giving that timeline. What did The Rock give us here?
Did you come up with that timeline yourself?
I did.
That's a great timeline.
Thank you. What did The Rock give us?
2 weeks of TV.
He gave us the promo with Cody on Raw.
Okay.
Or was it SmackDown? I think it was Raw. Where he said he wants his soul. And Cody was going to respond at Elimination Chamber. And then he partakes in Cena's heel turn at Elimination Chamber. Then he fucks off.
Okay.
Was that hot coming out of Elimination Chamber?
Yeah.
Yeah? We both agree it was. Why is it The Rock's fault and not Triple H's fault?
For not course correcting.
For not maintaining that heat into the Mania main event. Who was in charge of creative getting from Elimination Chamber
I think
to Mania? Whose fault is that?
I think the anticipation that people would have had based on The Rock's faction.
Whose fault is that anticipation is there?
It would be Ari for bringing The Rock in. Or The Rock maybe suggesting that he wants to take Cody's soul.
Yeah.
Also, like...
Sorry, what do you mean? Anticipation for The Rock showing up or anticipation for the faction?
That's what people wanted. People wanted to know why John Cena sided with The Rock. And the storyline that was created from The Rock's appearances was based on The Rock and John Cena being together.
Some sort of connection.
So
whose fault is it that was never mentioned again, though?
Yeah, but how could you mention it if he wasn't coming back?
You can do so many ways to get out of him not being there.
Yeah.
I suggested one simple way would be Cena cuts a promo on Raw the next night.
And The Rock is like Poochie saying, my work here is done. And
the Rock's not there, but Cena's cutting a promo saying to Cody, me and The Rock are going to take your title and we're going to take your soul at WrestleMania. Cody cuts a promo a week later saying, I want The Rock barred from WrestleMania. Cena says, you need to beat Braun Breaker in a cage match. Jacob Fatu in a cage match. The Rock beats Fatu in a cage match. Or Cody beats Fatu in a cage match. The Rock is banned from Mania.
We should do a fantasy book based on...
Yeah, like what you did with...
the Bud Ellis. Yeah, go check that out.
Check that out.
I always just get this uploaded and I never put in the cards afterwards where you go, you can check it out here. But
oh yeah, sure. No, so like you could have booked, Triple H could have booked the interim to maintain the heat, but have The Rock have a signal to the audience, The Rock can't be there. Cody's gotten barred from WrestleMania because he had to fucking go through the trials of Cena. You know what I mean? With tempered expectations for The Rock coming out. But they did nothing to temper those expectations.
It's definitely losers like this that Triple H are talking about. These two weren't happy about a damn thing. Just
I love the women's triple threat and the men's triple threat.
What a bad take. Mad at Cena for ads when WWE is full of ads. That's the point. That's what we're mad at.
Yeah.
Also, I'm
mad at Cena for the ads.
Oisin O'Reilly says, thanks for the shout out. Well, you're getting another one, Oisin O'Reilly and Oisin McCarthy, they're always commenting on stuff. It's brilliant. Big Plonko 7. Be dying to see you lads do retrospectives on old or bad storylines. Could be a right laugh. Don't quit as us, lads. It's a few Irish flags. If you actually go back to the very first iteration of this channel, there's about 10 little mini docs of just me doing
old shit,
like ridiculous storylines and putting a little twist on them and stuff. But it's something that I definitely want to get back into.
Yeah, I want to review some like 80s stuff and that.
It's just really time, but in the format that I was doing, it's really just time consuming. Finding time to do it. I barely even have time to come down and record this sometimes. You know what I mean? If you're actually or burn.ie 1127, and this is where a segue will come in. If you're actually serious, I'd love to see a series of
segue.
Yeah, but if you're actually serious, I'd love to see a series of reviews on old shows or something.
Yeah.
So yeah,
no, we're definitely doing that.
You messed my segue, but yeah.
Sorry. So my last point then is right. The rest of WrestleMania build was cold as well. Nothing was hot. That's Triple H's fault.
How you now said fuck The Rock for building the main story around himself and then not show up. Like he did though. He built that story around him. Like what was the whole bad blood thing?
Yeah. Oh, sure. The bad blood thing was just stupid. It was just The Rock wanted to pop. Look, I'm not saying The Rock is innocent here, but The Rock didn't fuck Triple H. Triple H fucked Triple H.
Black Circle said, thanks for saying the same things I was thinking also.
Yeah. Like the rest of WrestleMania, every other match at WrestleMania felt in various degrees of cool.
Ruben Hennessy, night 2 was good until the AJ v Paul match. The main event sucked. I loved Raw though. Braun, Rollins and Heyman's faction looks awesome.
Yeah, Raw was a bit slow, but there was some good stuff there.
Yeah.
I would say that.
I found it like, the first Raw after Mania, it's we've experienced some bad ones.
Yeah,
because we've built up anticipation, but I think they aim to deliver on this one. Like some of it was like, okay, it's just paint by number stuff. Here's a return. Here's a big shocking moment. Here's this. Here's that. But I think they execute it quite well.
Another problem with WWE and in general as well.
In a sec, Platinum. I just read this. Platinum Pagoda 3079. WWE's product has been pretty much hot garbage since last year. Triple H has dropped the ball on so many people. Wouldn't be at all surprised if AJ and Bayley are headed out the door when their contracts are up. Both would fit perfectly in AEW.
Yep. I think Bayley would fit better. But yeah, I can see that happening.
Would you not think AJ Styles would fit, right?
I think he would, but I also just
they're getting very cramped in there.
Getting cramped. Here's the thing, right?
Okay. And then we get into what we're actually talking about.
Yeah. And this can kind of lead into what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
WWE, right, have their developmental system. Yeah? And it's a great developmental system. They've developed some really good talent, particularly recently with the likes of Braun Breaker and all them. But if we go back to, and they're like, it was the night after Mania in 2002 is when Brock showed up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We never get debuts like that anymore in WWE because we've been exposed to everybody already too much on their developmental system.
I get you, yeah. So, like, say if Obafemi was just to appear, we're like, well, we've seen Obafemi.
Yeah, it's not like a debut in the company.
Yeah.
It's like, who's this new guy that we know nothing about? We've seen him for 2
years. But that's also the way of the world that you live in because you'd know about him anyway. If there was no NXT.
I get that too. But, like, if we could compare that recently to, and like these are guys that we knew, but like Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight and Josh Alexander showing up in AEW, and
they're not messing around and Ring of Honor before they're
and they immediately feel fresh because they are new, like to a big audience. Like we've seen Mike Bailey live in person,
and NXT is also relatively niche as well to people.
I know, but like I feel like you're a WWE fan, it gets decent enough viewers on a Wednesday.
Like if Obafemi shows up on Raw or SmackDown, people are going to know, but you're still going to get that Brock. You're still going to get people being like, "Who is that? That Brock Lesnar feel?"
Yeah, but I think the large majority will know who he is. Which I think kind of like they need to sign some people like
they need to stop filming everything.
What?
Like everything is content. Like NXT, now you have Evolve, then you have WWE ID.
Yeah,
and now they're like, they're buying up promotions and they're sending independent talent because they're not getting to wrestle as much. There's not many house shows, and so even if there was house shows and you found out Obafemi, you'd know Obafemi was on the house show circuit.
Yeah. But like,
it's just the way
Brock showing up as this like new, like never seen before athletic freak.
Yeah, but it's just the way of the world now. Like you're never going to get a King Kong Bundy.
But like Kevin Knight in particular on AEW has felt like a complete breath of fresh air because most of his work was done in New Japan. That not many on undercards.
TNA, didn't he?
Little bit TNA, a little bit MLW, but not a whole lot. and then, he had his New Japan run on not every tour, but some tours. So, like, him being introduced on the TV in a pretty central character role feels like a breath of fresh air in the mid-card. Whereas WWE introducing people that have spent a few years already on national network television in the US, it doesn't help their mid-card feel as fresh as it should.
Yeah, I get that.
Because, like, even then, like, the returns are like Miro and Aleister Black, and like that one feels super fresh as well because the returns. And Penta and Phoenix coming in is great for them, but also they've got heavy exposure over the last 5 years on national US television.
Yeah, like WWE would have sent Speedball to NXT.
Yeah.
And therefore NXT would be great, but the main roster wouldn't have got to experience the fresh Speedball that AEW.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and Kevin Knight, same thing. Like,
well, look, I want to get into stuff that
we like.
I feel like we're dwelling too much on the current product, of which, we haven't had much positive to say. But I feel I need to cleanse my soul and talk about some of the things that made me love wrestling.
Okay, I'm going to get relaxed for this.
Get relaxed for it, right?
Am I on camera? I don't know if I'm on.
I don't. Yeah, maybe you're too far off. Is he on camera? Let us know in the comments. But yeah, I like. There's so many different avenues of wrestling that you can love. You can love promos. You can love entrances. You can love the actual wrestling. You can even love like certain ads that have appeared in wrestling.
Ads or video packages?
No, like,
Are we talking WrestleMania 17 here?
No, not video packages. I'm just saying.
Which was 17, which was 19? Which was
17 was My Way.
My way, or the highway.
Yeah.
Greatest video package of all time.
Greatest video package of all time. But like, certain...
I love vignettes as well. Vignettes,
yeah. Like, there's so many different things that jump out to you when you talk about your love of wrestling. Do you remember when you first fell in love with wrestling?
It was like a confluence of factors. My elbow.
Confluence.
Yeah. So look, people are criticising me in the comments, but what do I know? I have a degree in English literature. I have a master's in English literature. I did a master's in narrative theory. A thesis written in narrative theory. That's been referenced all around the world. I know about storytelling. Published playwright, whatever you name it. Not actually published, that's the wrong word. But anyway.
I'm clipping this now.
Clip it. I am a man of many talents. But I remember when I fell in love with professional wrestling.
Yes, we need some pipes.
It was SummerSlam 92.
Yeah, because Sky One would have just like...
started doing...
Sky would have been a big thing of wrestling. I remember
Saturday morning superstars every week, and straight after that they had a kind of a clip show of loads of different things. You know what I mean? You'd get a squash match, but you get loads of vignettes as well. Yeah. Like I remember around that time, Razor vignettes, Mr. Perfect vignettes. When I started watching, and like I was 5 or 6. So a lot of that blurs into one. I can't tell you the exact timelines.
I would have been 2, 3, SummerSlam 92.
Probably too young for that.
But my dad, who hated wrestling, didn't know what it was back then, so he would have just sat down and watched it. Apparently it was the only thing that had shut me up. So there's photos with me ever since I was like a baby watching little Hasbros.
That's around the time I started my Hasbro collection as well. Yeah,
I still have all those Hasbros.
Yeah, my mother gave them away to charity.
Watching wrestling, but the first like event I think that sticks out in my mind is WrestleMania 8.
Okay.
And that probably could have been on tape. I don't remember watching it necessarily live.
Or it would in the time frame of it being kind of live. I get you. What year was 8?
8 would have been 92, actually.
Yeah.
It would have been before SummerSlam.
Just before SummerSlam,
yeah. So it would have been on tape then.
Yeah.
I would have seen. But I remember watching that event and how big was it the Astrodome?
Yeah.
Looked, oh man.
Yeah.
And all I could remember is like Papa Shango and Ultimate Warrior. Now, in years since.
Funny in hindsight.
Since I
realised Papa Shango fucked up.
No, but not even that. In years since, like I've realised how great Brett and Roddy is,
but your early memories are the characters.
Yeah. And like I think maybe that's why I could be quite harsh on, say, the character of John Cena, because to kids, he could have been like Hulk Hogan was to me. You know what I mean?
Was.
He is like, he is yeah.
Factually speaking, he is.
Whereas a lot of, but like, did older people like Marks hate Hulk Hogan as well? They would have been snobby with like, Ric Flair is much better.
Yeah, but they were also under Ring of Honor buzz at the time as well. A lot of the real heavy marks.
Yeah, but I'm talking about back in Hogan's time.
Of course, they were all Ric Flair dudes, like real wrestling lovers.
Yeah.
Like Hulk Hogan, look, with Vince and the expansion with Hulk Hogan in the 80s, that he expanded the audience to new markets, new demographics.
Ireland.
To Ireland. But he also lost a lot of
wrestling
fans as well, who were, fans of Bruno and Pedro Morales and Bob Backlund, and, they weren't into this new thing, but Vince expanded his audience to so many different demographics.
Did Vince Sr. not, like Superstar Billy Graham, he had that very theatrical look.
Yeah, but he had the look, but he was different from Hogan. It wasn't as...
Hogan's borrowed a lot from him.
But he wasn't as cartoonish as what Hogan became. But he had some of that, yeah.
Yeah.
But like, he had a relatively short run on top.
He did, yeah.
Actually, today... It would have been a decent title run.
In Bruno, Bob Backlund.
Yeah, it were years longer. Like he had, I think Billy Graham's was 8 months.
Right.
If John was here, he could correct us.
He went up with Dusty. Went up against Dusty, wasn't it?
Yeah, the famous match in Madison Square Garden, where Dusty won it, but he didn't win it. It was
the Dusty finish.
And yeah, so
but like even us talking about stuff that has happened before we were born, goes to show that we do
love
this.
Yeah.
So why do we get so caught up on the negative aspect because when we were growing up, inevitably there was things that we liked and things that we didn't like, and wrestling is a variety show at the end of the day. Yeah. So there is going to be stuff that we like and don't like. So why are we getting so hung up? And why do we think?
I think a lot of our WrestleMania negativity really did stem from the fact that the main event and the hottest match going into the show was the one that had the biggest wet fart.
But I remember like growing up being like inherently disappointed by various different WrestleManias, and I think that's because WrestleMania 17 just ruined all expectations of what WrestleMania should be. Like, that is the greatest, because it has everything.
Still to this day, it probably is.
It has carnage, mayhem, characters, legends, and nostalgia. Even the triple threat hardcore match with Raven, Big Show, and Kane.
That was cool,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. You have really good wrestling matches. You have really good storylines, although the Rock and Austin storyline probably didn't need the Deborah part to it or whatever, but it's the Rock and Austin, you know?
It's the Rock and
you
Austin.
have Triple H and Undertaker having a fantastic match. The McMahons.
Possibly the best of their 3 WrestleMania matches.
I think so, yeah. Like, and no other event ever, I think, lived up to that. And I remember being inherently disappointed by various different WrestleManias throughout the years, going, it was alright, it was alright. Because nothing could ever beat the carnage. And because and because that WrestleMania, I know it's the end of an era, it's the end of the Attitude Era, but like WrestleMania started to look a bit shinier after that.
Get a bit corporate.
Yeah.
What WrestleMania did they move to the stadiums?
So WrestleMania 22 was in that was the small one where after Eddie had passed.
Yes.
Then WrestleMania 23, I think that was in a pretty big stadium.
And they've been in stadiums ever since.
23, 24 was in Orlando, I think. 25, ever since.
Yeah. So almost half of Manias now have been stadium shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like WrestleMania 18 was in the Sky Dome. 19 was a weird one. That was in Seattle.
Yeah.
That was in Seattle. And then WrestleMania 20 was the last WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, I always felt they should have gone back because they did 10 there. They did 1 there.
Yeah.
They did 10 there. They did 20 there.
In New Orleans.
Yeah. I felt they should have gone back on 30 and 40. And I know corporate-wise... You check if I'm...
I'll check in if you're on camera. You keep talking.
I know corporate... Like, money-wise, it doesn't make sense to run Madison Square Garden for WrestleMania. But just for, like, the nostalgia me...
Run Light Wonder.
Yeah. Why not?
The different feel. And, like, don't have the small box entrance.
Yeah.
But, like, you know, all our wrestling fandom is based on nostalgia, isn't it? Like, can you? Well, obviously it's based on nostalgia, but can you, like, the live experience that you have watching wrestling when it's good?
Oh, it's awesome.
Like, I watched the pipe bomb live as it was happening. Yeah. I watched. I flipped back over between TNA and Monday Night Raw when they were having their first head-to-head.
Yeah.
So TNA were like, there's Jeff Hardy and there's Ric Flair. And you're like, what? And then WWE are like, here's Bret Hart. What?
Yeah,
even though he was highlighted.
Longer,
you know?
yeah.
Like, I remember that being such a massive part of my fandom, particularly TNA. WCW, going to my grandmother's house because my dad...
Friday nights, best night of the week when I was a kid. Yeah.
And then seeing Rey Mysterio. Like, I remember...
watching Rey Mysterio wrestle for the first time.
But telling my mates... when he was coming to SmackDown, who had never watched WCW, been like, because I remember telling them, you know, you'd have like, who's your favorite wrestler? And they'd be like, oh, my favorite is that. And I said, Rey Mysterio. And they're like, who's he?
Yeah.
How do you even know him? He's not in WWE. I was like, well, he used to be in WCW. And then they start, when like the vignettes started happening for him, I was so excited. I was like, this is the guy I'm talking about. And then he has that match with Kurt Angle. Like, but he dives off a cage on a SmackDown beforehand. And then he has the match with Kurt Angle where he comes from behind at SummerSlam. And you're like, fucking yes, bro.
Sensational.
We're off to the races.
See, I always thought that was the greatest opening match in WWE history.
Yeah. I actually quite like Cena and Big Show from WrestleMania 20. I think that's pretty fun.
Yeah, that was a really fun match, so
that's just one that sticks out.
Io, Rhea, and Bianca.
Would you classify that as an opening though, considering it was? Well, I suppose if the other one's a main event, you have to say that one's.
Well, I don't classify night one as a main event.
We're staying positive, man. We're staying positive. Punk got his main event.
I don't feel like he did. I don't want that to be his main event.
He closed the show, man.
He closed a show.
Yeah, he closed the show.
The show.
Night 4 of a buy one get one free. No, we're staying positive. We're staying positive.
But like, you know, as you grow up, various things at different times, like
various characters attract you.
Yeah, but we both fallen out of love with wrestling at different stages. I haven't though.
So. That's the thing. I've fallen out of.
You did last Monday.
Like I've always
Shane legit wanted to quit the podcast Monday.
Yeah, like I always have. I always had an alternative. So like growing up, I couldn't watch WWE because my dad wouldn't let me. So I'd watch WCW. That was my alternative. And then there was this lull. Then the wrestling channel started.
That was deadly. Yeah.
And then TNA happened, and then WWE started getting a bit like, because I loved like my fandom from 2002 to say 2004, the end of 2004 was peak. I say peak, it's still peak. Like I have a bloody podcast.
That was close to peak for me too.
But like this is when
Eddie's on top on SmackDown.
Yeah, but when I started making friends outside of school that also shared the same interests, and we hung out because we liked wrestling, so I could go to their house on a Saturday morning and we'd sit there and we'd watch SmackDown.
Yeah.
And we'd know what's happening. And then like your whole day in discourse is based around wrestling. Like you're having backyard matches, you're buying the WWE magazines, you're talking about rumors, you're going up, like we went up to Dublin to buy figures, and I remember
little train up,
and we were like 12, 13, and we were like we shouldn't be playing with figures, but we thought we were losers, we still are. But I remember my bag broke and one of the boys started kicking the figure down the road, going, oh, you got to pick up your tie there. Got to pick up your, even though he had a bag full of ties.
His didn't break though.
Yeah, his didn't break. So, but we were ashamed of it even at the time of being wrestling fans. It was like our secret, you know what I mean? If someone found out in school that you're a wrestling fan, they'd be like, you're a fucking, you're a Lubon, like you're mad. But like that was brilliant. I love those. We used to get hay bales.
And hop off.
And we'd build a ring out of hay bales, and we'd have our own storylines and our own little fed going and stuff. Man, they were such fun times.
That's good times, times.
And also to correspond with what was happening on the telly. Like, you know, you have Eddie Guerrero's ascension. You have that amazing JBL run. Which I really enjoyed at the time.
I enjoyed it in the sense
SmackDown 6 as well.
Look, SmackDown 6 was probably peak for me. There was also that time period of the SmackDown Tag Team Title Tournament where there was various guys kind of thrown together.
Yeah.
He Who Shall Not Be Named.
Yeah, he ended up winning it, didn't he?
Yeah. And, you know, like you had Edge and I was all like Edge, Mysterio was in it, Angle, He Who Shall Not Be Named, Eddie and Chavo. It was just like
even when Eddie started teaming with Tajiri.
Oh, like I loved all
and then
that.
putting through the windscreen.
Yeah, like that was such great stuff.
But like, was it great stuff, or was it like?
No, that was great stuff, Shen. That was great stuff.
But is it? Were we just looking back at Rose taking the glasses? Because
that was great at the time.
Yeah, but also you had Luther Reigns, and
I know, but
maybe that was a bit later. But you had Luther Reigns, and
yes, were some of the pay per view cards patchy with some crap on it? Yeah, but there was great stuff there to keep me interested.
Yeah.
Where I fell off for a few years after Eddie died.
Yeah.
I just didn't have this, and the Benoit thing as well.
I had TNA, so I was watching like Samoa Joe, but I'm still watching WWE, and every now and again,
I stopped WWE altogether.
Like
Eddie, and then the Benoit thing in relatively quick succession, kind of just
I
just didn't have. I dipped in a bit of TNA, and then. But I
TNA felt rugged, and it had a production quality that wasn't like you were watching
too shiny. Yeah,
it had a production quality that wasn't too shiny, but it wasn't too.
You weren't watching an indie.
Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't bad. Like it looked like a TV show, which it was.
Yeah,
but you weren't looking at a crappy VHS.
I dipped in and out of that for like. I'd see, Abyss has a banger storyline going now, right? I'd watch that for a while.
Even Abyss, because I'd never had the opportunity to watch ECW until I could afford the DVDs.
Afterwards. Afterwards.
So, like, the fact that Abyss and Sabu were going to have a barbed wire rope match.
That was one I dipped in for, yeah.
I was raring to go, and I remember watching that on the wrestling channel.
So I would have gone on a lot of the boards. And I'd follow on, and I'd see things getting like people be a bit of buzz around some storyline TNA are doing. I'd dip in and watch for a month, and then I'd dip out again. But then around 2009, 2010, Punk started doing really solid stuff before his pipe bomb. But like he started, you could see him gaining traction. So
Straight Edge Society and stuff.
Yeah, I loved that. I was back in for that. And then, I was around for a lot of that. And I kind of, by Summer of Punk with Kevin Nash and all, I got a bit pissed off. Dipped out again for a while. Noticed this Daniel Bryan cat was doing stuff. Was straight back in for that. Daniel Bryan and the Wyatt family was all over that. And then when Punk left and Bryan didn't get that Mania main event the following year, and I didn't like who they were pushing, I dipped out for a few years. And then I started watching a bit of NXT actually.
Yeah.
In that intermediate. I was like, some good
great
shit.
stuff happening.
When Balor went to TNT, I started watching a lot of TNT, and I followed him up to the main NXT. TNT. I'm saying TNA and NXT. When I found out Balor was in NXT,
were you watching Japanese wrestling at the time though?
I wasn't watching it. No, I was aware of the Bullet Club and Balor and an Irish guy being big in Japan. I wasn't watching it.
Okay.
I'd seen like YouTube edits and stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I was in the height of my UFC fandom at that stage as well. So most of my viewing time was
dedicated to watching fights.
Dedicated to watching that. But I'd heard about Balor and I'd seen YouTube stuff of Balor, and this is before New Japan would copyright strike literally everything. And so I'd seen like some of his stuff with like Taguchi and even Loki at Wrestle Kingdom and stuff. But I didn't know what storylines were as such. But I'd seen that he was in NXT now, so I started watching NXT, and then like Joe was there, and I'd loved Joe like years earlier.
Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe was there. I was like, fuck, this NXT thing is great. Then Balor went to the main event, and I kind of followed him. Or to main roster, and he had the first run, wins the title within a month. And I remember going over to my mate's house to watch Raw when we knew he was on the Raw, and they were doing the number one contender thing a few weeks before SummerSlam.
Fatal 4-Way or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, Fatal 4-Way, and the winners of that would go on to a match at the end of the night. And Balor won it. I was like, what? So I was all in. Then he got injured, but then I was like, the likes of Kevin Owens were there, and I was like, yes. So ever since then, I've been back in it, and I loved a lot of what WWE did, but also hated a lot of it. But
why do you hate it? Why do you find that balance of like? Is it the consistency isn't there for you? As I remember one time watching it and been like, how can so they're doing this Day of the Dead or whatever zombie thing.
Yeah.
Where you have the lumberjacks of Damien for the Damien Priest and Miz match, and I was like, this is insulting my intelligence. But then wrestling always did that. But what makes wrestling great to me is that it can be anything. Like, it literally can be anything. There's no strict format for it. Now, there is some stuff that because it could be anything, it doesn't mean I like anything. But I have to understand that in the context of this universe or this television show that I'm watching, anything can happen because the parameters haven't necessarily been set, especially if you're looking at WWE as like canon stuff.
Yeah, look, Vince was never one major for canon, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but like, that's the world that we're living in now in terms of cinematic universes.
Yeah, look, Marvel came along and made canon a whole different thing. I know probably Star Wars did it first, like, but it became part of the cultural zeitgeist.
Like WWE are doing that now. That's why the Shield thing, they keep harping back.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, when Triple H and Undertaker were having their match at WrestleMania 27, I don't think they even referred to WrestleMania 17. You know what I mean?
And, like, there's the same distance between WrestleMania 17, Triple H and Undertaker, and 27 as there is between the Shield breakup and this WrestleMania.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same length of time, like.
Yeah.
And that's both a good thing and a bad thing, probably.
I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's a good thing. It's just sometimes if you go back to something a little too often, you have Michael Cole screaming at you.
But that's the good.
I think in general it's a good thing.
I've invested my time in this, and now it's starting to pay
I think
off.
in general it's a good thing. It's just like sometimes the Michael Cole screaming at me about
wrestling is good. It's just it's the best.
Great.
It's the best.
You know, it's just so.
When is there moments that it's peaked for you? Because I've had various moments where I remember the first time I seen ECW One Night Stand. I remember watching that live and being so amped for it.
Yeah,
it didn't look or feel anything like anything I've experienced before. And then Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome go out and absolutely level the head off each other.
One of the best matches.
But like, it wasn't even a wrestling match. It was like, I'm just going to totally beat you up.
Yeah.
And then later on you get like, the Dudleys and Tommy Dreamer and Fire and Sandman.
This is going to sound super marky, right? But I remember it was that year that Balor and Balor win the title. That was the same year as Cena and AJ had their first great match at that same SummerSlam, actually. And I was watching What Culture around Christmas time. I was home from Abu Dhabi for Christmas holidays, and they were doing like their top 10 wrestlers of the year, and they did a 1A and 1B. So they had 2 1s, and they had Styles
and Kenny
Omega.
Yeah,
and I was like, AJ Styles is clearly the best wrestler in the world here. I've just watched him all year do great things. So I was like, all right, what's the story with this Kenny Omega guy, right? I seen, he's in the main event of New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom in 5 days' time on the 4th of January. I was like,
Okada.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to watch this.
7 stars, that one?
No, 6 stars. The first 6 stars. So I was like, okay, I'm going to watch it. How can I watch this? So I did a little bit of research, signed up New Japan World, and I got up. It was like 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning, and I was actually flying back to Abu Dhabi that evening, restarting school on the Monday. So it's 4th of January, got up 8 a.m, watched the card from the start. Never seen like a full New Japan card. I had only really ever seen like snippets, maybe not even full matches, but snippets. So I get up 8 a.m, stick on Wrestle Kingdom 11. So there's a load of mad shit happening on the undercard. I don't know any of the storylines, anything. And you get to like...
Did they have English commentary?
Had English commentary, yeah. You get to like... they used to only have English commentary at that time just for Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah.
Like if you watched like Dominion or whatever, there's no English commentary. So you get to about 3 out from the main event. And like these matches are just incredible. But then you get to the main event. Kenny Omega, Okada. I'd never seen either of them wrestle. And I watched this match, and I just instantly thought, that is the greatest wrestling match I've ever seen in my life. I've seen Kenny Omega now have 1 match. Yeah. I'm willing to bet he's the best professional wrestler I've ever fucking seen. That's the way I felt.
What was it about? The story through it, the athleticism,
Yeah, just the story of it was in that match that Okada had now been firmly established as a basically unstoppable champion. And Kenny Omega had emerged as the leader of the Bullet Club post AJ and gone on this run with renewed confidence as believing he's a top guy, winning the G1 climax, and he was the only one that could stop Okada. But he ran out of steam. He couldn't stop Okada. And it was almost like Kenny was supposed to be the heel and Okada was kind of supposed to be the face, but the fans were turning them. And doubt started, and they just had this like athleticism and storytelling. And you know, people talk about storytelling. This was the most story-driven match I've ever seen, and the levels of athleticism were off the charts. They went 46 minutes, and it was 46 minutes that breezed by in an instant.
Yeah,
and
it's not like the Iron Man match between Brett and Shawn.
No,
which is just, it can be a bit of a slog.
Yeah, that is a slog. It is a slog. It's a different time.
Someone had talked about. I remember Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar had the Iron Man match.
Yeah, that wasn't a slog.
Well, it was like 5-4 or whatever.
Yeah,
I think I had said something like, I don't like many pinfalls in an Iron Man match, and they were like, one of the greatest matches of all time is Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle.
Yeah, I like that match.
To be fair, yeah. Was it like a random SmackDown?
Yeah, it was a SmackDown. Yeah, I think it was a SmackDown. It wasn't Raw.
But like, it would have been SmackDown. It would have been like, it would have been in that time period when everything was awesome for me with wrestling.
Yeah. I know, I love that match.
When I would be sitting around with my mates having conversations, just not recording them and putting them up online.
Yeah, exactly. But then I was like, okay, well, this New Japan thing is clearly for me.
Yeah.
So I kept the subscription. And a few months later, there was an event, Sakura Genesis. And it was the Okada Shibata match. That is now legendary for being the one where Okada or Shibata suffered head injury. But on the undercard of that, it was like 3 from the top again. And Naito was doing amazing stuff for the Intercontinental title now at the time. And there was a Marty Scurll versus Will Ospreay match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. And again, like, I'd seen clips of Ospreay. You know, the clip that was famous with Ricochet and stuff in the Best of the Super Juniors the previous year, or maybe 2 years earlier. But this match blew me away. And then the Naito match in the semi-main event blew me away. And then the Okada Shibata match in the main event, like, just blew the brain out of my mind. I was like, there's a world of this here that's the best wrestling I've ever seen in my life. And then, you know, not long after that was Dominion, the 60-minute draw with Okada and Omega, which to this day I would say is the best match I've ever seen.
Wait, have you ever experienced a match in person that you were like, this has been amazing?
Walter Jordan Devlin.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I remember, but like,
that was the only time, like,
Speedball and Matt Riddle as well in OTT was cool.
I heard that too. And I heard there was a few Ospreay, Matt Riddle. I'd watched them.
On demand. I seen that back on demand. Dunphy was there for that one.
Dunphy was there for that. Almar was there for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was there the night Walter Gunter. Now, Walter beat Devlin, JD McDonough.
Oh, you were at the first one?
I was at the first one.
I was at the one in Scrappermania one.
Yeah, no, I was at the first one and Walter beat him.
Yeah.
And I'll never, like, that was the best match I've ever seen live. It was incredible. In person.
Yeah.
Incredible, like. And there was a great undercard in that too. Ishii and Juice Robinson had a street fight. Fucking great. Like, there was loads of great matches on it. But that main event, the place was molten hot for Devlin.
Yeah.
Molten hot. He was the import killer.
And he lost.
And like, I'll never forget. And they went 30 minutes, like, because they did in the rematch as well. And I'll never forget. There was a deafening silence.
I love moments like that in wrestling.
A deafening silence.
I really like the streak. When the streak, when the streak was broken, I remember just being like,
the shock, like, you know, the shock. They say that about Bruno losing to
Koloff.
I was going to say Volkov. Koloff. That, like, Madison Square Garden, there was just this almost deafening, stunned silence. It was the same with The Undertaker and Brock.
Or was it Super Celebrity Graham?
No, it was the call-off one.
Right.
Yeah. That Madison Square Garden, just there was this like the life had been sucked out, and then an almost like riot-like atmosphere. You love that shit, like. But yeah, it was like that with the Brock Undertaker end of the streak. That one that I was there live for, Devlin and Walter.
I remember feeling like that watching at home when Mick Foley quit Royal Rumble '99.
Same.
Because I was like,
I was devastated.
Mick Foley's never going to quit.
Yeah,
like, what are you doing, Rock? And he bet him and bet him and bet him. And then I remember tuning in
Raw
the next night.
Yeah.
Devastated that my hero, who, like Mick Foley, Kurt Angle, and Kevin Owens, I'd say are my top three.
Yeah.
Right? Kevin Owens obviously only really enters that equation in the last few years, but my fandom growing up was...
You think of like Kevin Owens' run doing
it's longer than what Mick Foley's run has been.
Yeah.
Like, Mick Foley came in 96, and by 2000, he was retired. Like,
yeah.
He retired.
I know he did stuff after that, but like his main run was gone. Yeah.
It was 4 years.
Yeah.
Kevin Owens has been in WWE. His debut against John Cena was 2015. That's 10 years.
10 years, yeah. But like Kevin Owens has had...
And Mick Foley has had how many characters in that time?
Yeah, yeah. I know
but
Kevin Owens...
That's not denigrating Kevin Owens. Like,
I
love Kevin Owens.
Kevin Owens had an unbelievable run.
Kevin Owens doesn't need a character.
Well, like,
he himself... not that Mick Foley did, but he himself is like the most believable thing.
Yeah, like here's another thing that like stands out as one of my favourite things of modern wrestling was the Jericho Kevin Owens stuff. Like that really like
Festival of Friendship,
the build up to the Festival of Friendship, Jericho doing the list, two of them allied together, that against like Roman Reigns, who's like Roman Reigns is the face, but we all want Kevin Owens. You know what I mean?
And Triple H didn't want that Festival of Friendship thing happening.
Crazy. Like that is an all-timer angle, and like because like a lot of stuff on the main card or on the main roster, then like NXT was firmly better than at that stage, like, you know. But when you turned on, I would tune in to watch Jericho and Kevin Owens.
Yeah.
And then I might have to watch a Baron Corbin match or something against my will. But like the Jericho Kevin Owens stuff. But then like there was a time there where there was just like this insane, like what I'm talking about, that stuff happening in New Japan. But you could turn on an NXT takeover at this like the week later and see what felt like all-time classics as
like,
well.
American Alpha against the Revival.
Yeah, and like going on...
those are some of the best tag team matches. DIY against the Revival.
Yeah, DIY Revival, unbelievable. One of my favourite matches, again, that I've ever seen, Gargano Andrade.
Oh,
I love that match.
NXT TakeOver, one of them. Oh man,
I
remember watching that with someone at the time that didn't like wrestling, and they were glued to it.
You couldn't be anything but glued
and like NXT, it was Sasha and Bailey in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
I was legit like tearing up watching that.
Yeah.
And that's when wrestling is amazing, when the story just grabs you, and not necessarily the payoff. It doesn't necessarily have to be like the person you like going over. Like Cody didn't go over against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39, and I was like, this is well, I didn't say it was the worst thing to ever happen.
No, because
it
was actually a pretty good match.
Yeah, and then they paid it off at WrestleMania 40.
Yeah,
fair enough.
And they were right there. They were
100%.
the ones that were right.
Yeah.
We were wrong for saying that they got it wrong.
I don't think I said it. Well,
I thought they made the wrong decision. I thought they'd hurt Cody too much and that he might not be able to maintain his juice for 12 months.
I was apprehensive about that, but I was more apprehensive, I think, about the fact that Roman
doing another full year as champion.
So there's no jeopardy in any of his title matches. Bart, like, he went up against Jey Uso at a SummerSlam, and I was kind of like,
there was no jeopardy in that. But
wrestling was cooking, man, and that was only last year.
I felt like there was jeopardy in the Sami Zayn one. The month before, I was they've gone this far, and they might actually do it now.
Yeah. And then The Rock comes.
Yeah.
Is that when The Rock came?
Was that night?
WrestleMania 40.
Yeah, but it was
not that night. But that was in that
time
span.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Or no, it was.
No, it wasn't. WrestleMania 39 was with Sammy, wasn't it?
Sorry, that was Toronto before 39. Yeah, Jesus. Wow. So there's some great stuff there.
Wrestling's moving fast, man.
Because
WrestleMania 40, Sammy and Kevin won the
tag titles off the Usos, yeah.
No, wait, then it was.
That was 39 night one. That was the main event of 39 night one.
What did Sammy do at WrestleMania 40 then?
40 was... So Jimmy fought Jey Uso at 40.
Yeah.
What did Sammy do at 40?
I can't remember.
Drew...
Something Kevin? What did Kevin do at 40? He main events with Stone Cold, did the tag team main event.
Yeah, and then at 40, I don't know what he did.
You keep talking there.
Because it was Jimmy versus Jey Uso in an all-time bad match, and that's just been fair.
We're being positive.
Yeah, but that's been fair. That was an all-timer of a bad WrestleMania match.
Gunther and Sammy.
Oh, for the IC title, for fuck's sake.
Damn it.
Yeah,
and then Kevin Owens was with Randy against Logan Paul.
The triple threat. Yeah,
How did we forget that? Even that run.
Well, to be honest, the Kevin Logan Randy was forgettable.
Yeah, but even that
the
run,
Gunter
Sammy
wasn't.
But we were kind of like, maybe it should have been Chad Gable, and that's the good thing about wrestling is it can be.
I still feel like it should have been Chad Gable.
If you can build up all these characters,
then you've got something cooking.
Class.
You have loads of guys cooking. But like Gargano Andrade, I loved that match so much. And even after that, I know it got a little bit repetitive for me, the match structure, main event match structure after Gargano Andrade. And they still had great matches, like the Adam Cole stuff and the Gargano Ciampa stuff. They were still great matches. I just felt they were a bit repetitive.
Yeah.
But it was still things were still cooking for me in NXT. Karrion Kross, that kind of pushed me away a bit. And by that stage...
Joe came back in for a while as well during that stage, didn't he?
Yeah. But by that stage, I was getting from AEW what I had previously gotten from NXT.
Yeah, AEW, one of my favourite matches of all time is Cody and Dustin.
Oh, Jesus.
I remember watching that going, this promotion is everything I ever wanted in wrestling.
Yeah.
And it's all here. And this is at the height of just so pissed off with Vince McMahon and
you're we're getting Roman, force-fed face Roman.
Yeah, suffering succotage, dog food and
Baron Corbin with dog food, and
you're like, this is everything I want. This is real men beating the head off each other, having a story with them. You know
the same night, was that the same night? Mox shows up in the main event between Jericho and Kenny. Yeah. Oh, class.
Yeah, and you're like, anything can happen, and it still had that look of wasn't too polished.
I find even now, I love the show at the minute. As I've said, I feel like the last month or two has to the stage where I've gotten a webcam. And I'm going to start doing reviews of the show on Thursday mornings before I go to work. That's how much I like that show at the moment. Now, I'm saying I'm going to do that, but if they go back to 2023 and 2024
you have to review. You have to review when it's bad too. So does that mean we have to still do our review shows if we have to review when it's bad
too? Yeah. But
I just don't want that negativity. I don't want people.
No, but you have to tell you when it's shit to really appreciate when it's good. We're talking about here 30 years of fandom, and we're picking out things over 30 years that we've loved. If I pick my all-time favorite periods of anything I've watched, it's Stone Cold 98, Eddie Guerrero.
I was there for all of the NWO. From the start, I remember.
I did like that. I didn't love that's not a thing where I would put in my top three things of all time.
That's like me in my nan's house on a Friday night watching
Bret Hart 97.
Yeah, see, I was only getting glimpses of all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I'd get to watch the WWF pay-per-views.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't get to see the TV.
WCW ones.
But I'd see the WCW TV and not get to see the
pay-per-views.
But I was aware of what was going on everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember Roller Coaster Records. They used to have VHSs.
Yeah, love
wrestling
that.
VHSs. So I remember buying them, saving up in my teens. Your nan might slip you a €2 or $5 or whatever, and I'd get Breakdown 98 on DVD.
I had that on video. I had that on video. I remember the cover of it.
Yeah, and it was Undertaker and Kane against Stone Cold.
Yeah,
in a triple threat match. I was awesome, but
Stone Cold's first run as champion.
I would have never go watch a random breakdown when I had the network.
Me and Dunph did for our Dead podcast.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
Fuck your Dead podcast.
Yeah, it's dead. R.I.P.
But that was for a purpose.
Yeah, that was for a purpose.
What I'm saying is
well, I did go back and watch No Mercy 2002 because I had the finals of that tag tournament I was talking about.
Yeah.
I went back and that was just for me to. I want to go back and watch this.
remember, like, when I had them all on VHS and DVD, I'd go back. Like, I've seen Survivor Series 1989 and the Great American Bash 1990 because they were the two VHSs I had. Survivor Series 89, I got it in the Lockboy video shop. That's not there anymore, obviously. And then the Great American Bash 1990, I got from Mark Shortall and never gave it back to him.
What was the main event in 1990?
It was Sting against Ric Flair.
Oh, yes.
And me and Mark Callis was on the card too.
Was that the one Sting won?
Against Luger. The one Sting won and everyone came out and put money.
Yeah.
I watched that.
Iconic.
But like, even back then when I was a kid, I knew what WCW was. I was like, that's not WWE. And I still love that feel of... But it had a
distinct look too.
Yeah, I still like what, the ramp going all the way to the ring. And I go back to that time and I watch that stuff. And
another big thing for me was discovering 1990s All Japan. Later.
Getting to see Terry Gordy just absolutely rip stuff up.
There was like this
Jumbo Tsuruta.
But like you had this such a great mix of the Japanese talent and also like the guys they had from America. Stan Hansen, Terry Gordy, Dr. Death, Steve Williams. Like it was like a Vader, like a murderer's row. Like, and then you'd go back and I found this thing and I watched all these great matches out of order, so I didn't know the storylines. But like, here's Kawada versus Vader. I was like, okay, this is the best match I've ever seen. Oh, wow. And then I go, all right, this Kobashi versus Stan Hansen. Oh, actually, I think this might be the best match I've ever seen. It was just this constant thing of like, it's great going back discovering stuff, but also, like, I just wish I could have seen that at the time.
I go back watching, particularly last year, not as much this year, a lot of World Class Championship Wrestling.
Oh, yeah.
Like some of it, like there's some clever.
Some of their angles are so good,
but like a lot of it is like Von Erich and Freebird based. You know what I mean?
Sure, look.
But like Michael Freebird Hayes, he's been recently called this generation's Pat Patterson by Triple H because of the clever stuff that he can think of. But all that clever stuff was happening back in the territory days too.
Do you know what? It was a real thing that AEW, when things started to go to shit, got away from was in their early days, they borrowed so much stuff from various territories in the 80s, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the Punk MJF feud had so much of that stuff. The MJF Cody feud had so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
The Mox Jericho feud for the title, that was like literally just lifting old angles and storylines from World Class and Mid-South and stuff, you know what I mean? They would like merge various storylines from the 80s territories and come up with a modern twist on it. And they did, like, AEW was brilliant at that in the early days, and then they started to kind of
try and book themselves.
Not even trying to almost like copy Vince style booking instead of, you know, and that's where it kind of got shit there for a while.
You know, when you're watching it though, what happened? What's your inner monologue that's happening when you're watching it?
For me,
is that a thing that, like, because I only heard recently that some people don't have it in their monologue.
Well, that's weird to me.
That freaked me out. I don't think that's true. Is it true?
Can't be true. Everyone has to have it in their monologue.
Yeah, so like if you don't, I can imagine that you're just sitting there and just taking it in. Whereas like I'm sitting there and if something is slightly askew, I'm like,
yeah,
like the other day,
I don't think I'm as vigilant as you are for that stuff.
Yeah, but like, I'm not talking about the act like. Wrestling moves or anything like that.
Yeah, I don't notice a lot of.
I'm not talking about that kind of stuff because like, I can get lost.
You often notice the stuff in how certain moves are done or mistimed, whatever. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, but I can still get lost in a match. You know what I mean? Like I still don't know how to do a lot of things, but I remember watching, and me and Dunphy had wrote in going, "Don't like the new announce tables."
I never noticed that shit. And like also,
but like the way the new announce tables broke, I was like, don't like it. Why can't I just stop it and be like,
but you've often said to me as well about commentary and that. And I genuinely think over the years I have stopped. I don't notice commentary anymore.
That would be like watching wrestling without commentary would be like listening to a song without lyrics.
No, not if the commentary's crap.
Yeah, I know, but like crap lyrics can ruin a song. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You're watching the whole package, but like think about some of the great commentators. Yeah. Like Jim Ross.
Peak Jim Ross is unbelievable.
That's it.
Yeah.
I like Morro, Ronaldo. I think
I have some great memories of him. I do think because he did a lot of MMA as well. He did Bellator and stuff.
Boxing.
I did a lot of big time boxing.
McGregor and Mayweather,
yeah, he did some. But even before that, he did some big time boxing. Like I do think he's a great wrestling commentator, great sports commentator. But I do also think that like in recent years, he did kind of go past it a little bit. You know, everyone goes past it at a certain stage. I just find it's not that I actively don't listen to it. It's just kind of washes over me now. And I just think that's indicative of the fact that I don't really think there's many good commentators in wrestling anymore. I think wrestling commentary on the whole needs a kind of a hard reset of the style that's being allowed to happen.
They've tried it a few different, like they've tried, I remember there was 4 people, or AEW still have 4 people on it.
Sometimes too many.
And they have like rotation commentators. So they have
I kind of like that. I kind of do like that because I've liked that a lot recently where Jim Ross gets brought in for very specifically picked matches. Nigel McGuinness then will come in for specifically picked matches that will suit him.
I was surprised that, excuse me, I was surprised WrestleMania didn't really do that with, I like Joe Testatori's voice.
Yeah.
He wasn't really drafted in.
No.
They are pretty high, obviously, on Wade Barrett. He got drafted in for...
Hey, he's okay.
Yeah, Michael Cole and Pat McAfee.
What I mean about a hard reset is I think just in general...
We're here to talk about good things.
You know, but this could be a good thing.
Who's your favourite commentators? Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh, yeah, like Bobby the Brain. Just, I know he did some mad shit.
I like Jesse with Gorilla as well. That was fun.
But he was great, yeah.
That's nostalgia.
That's nostalgia as well. I think,
I like Tony Schiavone, Mike Tenay back in the day.
I love Mike Tenay. Do you know, I thought Mike Tenay and Don West.
Yeah, I like Don. I know Don got a lot of crap, but I like Don.
Don was a guy who, I remember like watching TNA when Don did his first few shows. I was like, God, this guy's crap. And then, like I said, I used to dip in and out. So maybe 6 months, 12 months passed. And I watched again. I was like, he is the most improved commentator I've ever heard. Like, you know, I got maybe 2 or 3 weeks when he was starting out. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks, 12 months later, or 8 months, 6 months later, whatever. I was like, that guy's the most improved commentator. Like, he got actually pretty good after a while. But he apparently worked really hard at it. You know, he wasn't one of these guys who came in from the outside and was a bit arrogant about it. Like, he got down in the weeds about studying storylines and moves and history of wrestling and stuff. So fair play.
Like, fans can pick up on that stuff and we appreciate it. I just think
wrestling commentary's been following the same pattern now for too long. I think both companies, or every company,
if they did try and reinvent the wheel, like they're trying to do with announce tables, you're going to have little marks like us down in the basement giving out about.
Yeah, but like, just maybe, I don't know, try out just a pure sports presentation for a while, you know what I mean?
No, it's not though. It's not pure sports.
I just don't like it.
I liked when UFC used to have entrances.
A day is a long time since they had entrances.
I know, that's what I'm saying, but I liked it. Like, they had
like, if you go back, right, and look at Pride.
Yeah.
They had the most badass entrances of all time. Yeah, fucking Bob Sapp, all this shit. They had like watching Fedor enter. But like, there's a thing now in UFC, right, where they don't really they do an entrance. They don't really. But I was in the arena a few times, and I've always hated this entrance thing they do now. But there's something so uniquely special about Islam Makhachev's entrance. The next time he'll be fighting this summer, most likely June, July. It's like so stripped back, and there's just this weird loopy tune playing, and there's something mesmerizing about his entrance.
This is where all the wrestling fans have now turned off.
Yeah. Islam Makhachev's entrance.
I'm sorry.
I've been there. I've been there in the arena twice for it. It was almost like a religious like experience.
I had someone say that to me about when we were doing the wrestling video game one.
Yeah.
It was like when you start talking about COD.
I was gone. Yeah, I went off on one there. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Not a lot of people listen to that. Probably because there's
a very niche thing, though.
Probably, I didn't think it would be that niche, but like that, even that goes to show my fandom is just like, you know, I care passionately about these things.
Yeah. But like,
and
and here's something else I'm really passionate about liking. I like the fact that I hate Triple H so much. So,
I wish I didn't like wrestling.
Sometimes, yeah.
I wish that I didn't have this thing in my life
when we spoke about this, about at least like me and John have said, our love of wrestling has kind of, we both feel has harmed our productivity in our outside lives.
Yeah.
But you've actually gone and trained to be a wrestler, and you do a lot of work with OTT and stuff. So like you've turned your.
But so have you with this.
Yeah, but like I haven't gone training or anything like that.
Wrestling Fan Wrestling Show.
I haven't gone training and got booked on shows and helped out backstage. I know I had the opportunity to do some of those things, not to get booked or, but I had the offer to help you with the backstage stuff, and I chose to drink 20 pints and watch the show. That was my choice. But that was like my first day off in 5 weeks.
That's been productive, man. You're enjoying the show.
That was productive. Yeah.
You can be productive by like enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
And I just enjoy investing my time in wrestling. Like, do you know what I was doing last night?
What's that?
And this is why I'm like, what time can you do the podcast? And you're like, 6. I'm like, I'm finished work at 4. Now I got to hang out for...
Yeah, my job finishes at 6.
No, but which is fine. Like, I understand it. But I wish I didn't like wrestling because it takes up so much
I know, and
of my time. Like, everything. And going back to video games. Like, I have different consoles, so I could buy different video games. And, like, I had to work my job to buy those things. You know what I mean? I went to work knowing full well that I needed 40 quid to buy Legends of Wrestling 2.
So I need to do my shit. I need to get through this shit.
So I'm in Super Quinn or whatever, fucking scanning things or pushing trolleys going, I need to get Legends of Wrestling 2 so I can go home and be in the territories and feel what that's like. Oh, I need to do this 3-hour shift so I can buy the 3-disc Excellence of Execution Bret Hart DVD.
Deadly.
The greatest wrestling of the 80s DVDs. I've like all that stuff. Oh, now there's a cool figure out, or there's a cool T-shirt out, or I need to go down and do a podcast. Before I do the podcast, I have to watch this, and this.
Yeah.
And then
that's kind of in some ways why I think we fell apart on the last review show, is
because you invest so much time in it.
We invested so much time in it, and we didn't like it. Like every other review show we did, whether it be AEW or WWE, every other review show we did.
No, but there was balance on those.
Yes, I enjoyed, but I didn't hate any show. Even WWE ones that maybe I wasn't as positive about them as I was about the previous AEW show. But I didn't hate the WWE show. There was... probably on balance, slightly more stuff that I liked than I disliked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if it was a 5-match pay-per-view, I was pissed off that I only saw 5 matches, and maybe one of those I thought was crap, and 2 of them I thought were good, and one or two I thought were great. We got
14 matches at WrestleMania 41, and you know there was some okay matches. Only one massive dud.
Massive dud?
Yeah. That was the main event, I think.
Yeah, I thought Charlotte Tiffany was duddish enough as well.
Yeah, but like...
I was so excited for that in advance, I didn't care.
You know, there's 14 matches, and I think we just really honed in on all the bad of it.
But like, a problem with even some of the matches...
It was just underwhelming, and we like, going back to the WrestleMania 17 analogy, nothing will ever beat that.
Yeah, but like,
nothing will ever beat that moment in time when... Whatever age we were, at the end of the Attitude Era, having that collection of characters and that collection of carnage, that look and feel of what 2001 was.
Being topped off by those two in a main event.
Yeah. Like, you've had even the vignette was My Way, like, by Limp Bizkit, as opposed to Fiend.
If you compare 41 to 17, people were really pissed off at the 17 main event.
Yeah.
But the match was so great that's still regarded as the best WrestleMania ever.
Yeah.
If the Cena Cody match had been an all-time great match, or just a great match with a bit of a dud finish, we'd have been a lot more forgiven. If they had gotten to Rock Stone Cold levels of heat and juice and fire and piss and, you know what I mean? Piss and vinegar.
Do you still like wrestling?
I love wrestling.
I love wrestling. All right. We're still going to passionately talk about it.
Whether it's good or bad.
If there's going to be review shows, I don't know, in the future.
Might depend on how good the show we just watched was.
Backlash isn't really interesting me now.
Double or Nothing is coming up. I'll review that.
And we maybe pick an old pay-per-view.
I think we should review an old pay-per-view. And I mean...
Because that... Do you know the very first thing that we recorded was Survivor Series, I think 1990? It was me, John, and Dunphy. Very first thing. But the microphones weren't working for half of it. But the pilot episode is out there somewhere.
This is before they let me in with my negativity.
Yeah, but like it was really positive. Like I had notes written down and like, I like the way when they did this and this.
Well, like when I came to do my first episode on the tag teams, I had reams of notes.
Yeah,
and you came down like, I'm just going to shoot from the hip. I was like, okay.
But like we were looking at stuff and we're like, that's silly, but we weren't getting pissed at. You know what I mean?
See,
and we were looking at it going, that was clever. You don't see that anymore. Yeah. And that was the way you were looking at it.
I would like to review like some Flair Funk 1989 pay-per-view or something. You know what I mean? Something like that. Or Flair Steamboat 89 or something like that. I'd be well up for that. Yeah. Get outside of a WWE. Just like an old defunct Terry Funk company, you know, a company doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, so I'm not watching Battleground 09 or whatever.
No.
Bragging Rights 09.
Yeah, no, fuck that. Like get
not reliving the trauma of John Cena on top.
Like
I am now. Oh no.
Something that has like a fucking great Ric Flair Terry Funk main event and like maybe a Freebirds tag match or a Fantastics tag match.
Uncensored 95 Dungeon of Doom.
Oh well, like that could be real funny.
That would be funny.
Yeah. That could be real funny.
So we still love wrestling. We need John Martin down for some positivity.
Yeah, he's around at the end of the month, he said.
Is he? Is he going to do the podcast or can he handle the heat?
No, well, look, that man survived the Hulkamaniacs. I think he can handle anything. We got the C-Nation.
C-Nation.
Yeah. The Dungeons and Dragons.
Nincompoops.
Yeah. Look,
I feel like
I put it like this. We're losers for doing a wrestling podcast. You're losers for commenting on our wrestling podcast. Let's all be losers together.
We have been the Wrestling Fan, the Wrestling Show. Big Beefy Boy, Marto, Old Box. Thanks very much for listening.